so happy today to have George McCleary here. Thanks for coming, man.
My pleasure.
Um, if people don't know you, it's kind of funny because I like saw your viral video first, and then my friend, like a month or two later, my friend Kristen was like, "Hey, I think this guy's like in Portland or like in the area, and we could do an episode." And
We love Kristen.
yeah, she's great, and I asked her to be here, but she's like doing something for the weekend. But yeah, I'm glad you're here to kind of explain this video. Because it's funny and it's very educational, I think, about our region.
It really struck a nerve. It really did.
Yeah.
So the video that Andy's talking about, I'll just sort of
Yeah.
give a little background on it. So it's called I Stole a House, and I thought of it. It was actually Super Bowl Sunday that I
Okay.
kind of got in my head. Hey, I think I need to talk about how easy it is to squat around here because I've been reading more and more reading more and more about people squatting, stealing houses, stealing titles, and there's kind of a playbook for it. So the video shows me saying, "Hey, this is how I stole a house," and the house in the background when I'm shooting that video is actually my house.
Oh, is it?
And funny enough, my mail carrier just like a week ago said, "Hey, did this house get stolen?" And I said, "No, but it sounds like you saw the video." I was like, and I explained the whole thing to him. He's like, "Oh, great. Well, I'm glad it didn't get stolen because I was like, that's on my mail route." But so I say, this is how I stole a house in Portland until I got away with it. And it explains how squatters, breach a lockbox, get into a vacant house, find one that's either being rented or for sale, and they just post up there. And because nobody's really paying a whole lot of attention to it, they hang out there, moving their furniture, and make it look, at least in some way, like they belong there. So then, when the cops get called or the owners show up, they can convince them that, like, hey, I actually have the lawful right to occupy this place. And of course,
Mhm.
the owner is going to say, like, heck no, they don't. This is BS. But then the cop is in a real tough position then because he doesn't know who's telling the truth and who's not. And if he removes somebody that has a lawful right to occupy a home, then he could get in big trouble. So he's not going to put his livelihood on the line. So the squatter remains, and then the homeowner, because the legal system on this is just so messed up, they actually have to file for an eviction,
Mhm.
which can be a months or even years long process to get somebody who never gave them money, doesn't have a lease, and has no lawful right to occupy the place. But they just get to stick around there while the judicial process, which moves glacially, eventually kicks them out. And that's actually faster to evict them than to eject them for trespassing. So it's super messed up. So I make this video and I show, hey, this is how I like broke into the lockbox. There's YouTube videos. I went to the house and the owner showed up, said, hey, this is me. This is my house. Sorry. And post it. It immediately got taken down off of TikTok, but not before my notifications just completely exploded.
Mhm.
So then I posted on Instagram, and the same thing happened. And so it's getting, thousands, tens of thousands of views. And then I go to bed that night. This was a Super Bowl Sunday again. And I wake up the next morning, and somebody sends me a link to Twitter and a right wing Twitter page. I guess I should call it X now. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't.
I still call it both, but
I,
yeah,
I
whatever.
can't do that. It sounds like a anyway. So it's like got millions of views, and I can tell right away there's like American flags and skulls with Oakleys on and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm like, oh no, because my politics, just for full disclosure, fall pretty much right down the
Right,
middle.
right, yeah.
But living in Portland, it people will think based on some things that I've said that I'm more on the right side. I'm a registered Democrat. The,
Yeah.
the ground has just kind of moved underneath my feet.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I am too, yeah.
So, and plus I wanted to vote in the primaries and actually have it matter. So anyway, uh, that's when things could just start blowing up. My phone just explodes with everybody that I've ever met saying like, "Hey, I saw your video. This is crazy." Um, like distant relatives, friends, moms, everybody had something to say, and most of it was great. A lot of it was not very nice.
Okay.
A lot of people thought it was real and wanted to shoot me. And then that was the right wing people, and
Right.
then the left wing people were saying like, "Hey, good for you for completely like fucking over a person who
Right.
owns a house."
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a landlord; just anybody who owns a house. Fuck them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So So then I got invited on some news programs, and then I was scheduled to go on Fox News. But then earlier in the day, I had a little rant where I said like, "Hey, these left wing people, you know, they should go fuck themselves because that's messed up." And then the right wing people who have actually like made me popular over this, I am in no way like associated with those people. No, that's a hard no for me. But by doing so, I think I alienated some of the Fox News audience, and then
Okay.
Fox called me up. They're like, "Yeah, no, we don't want you anymore."
That is crazy. Yeah, that they just
Yeah,
they're like that something went too far and they're like, "No, we're not gonna."
yeah, no, this guy, we thought he was one of us, but turns out he's not,
Okay.
because I'm definitely not a Fox News guy. But that's really the quickest way that a lot of people since then have tried to kind of marginalize me and like the things that I've been saying online is to just label me like a MAGA, like
Right.
a right wing Republican. And I'm like, dude, no.
Well, just for pointing this stuff out, like that seems kind
Yeah,
of silly.
it's a little crazy.
Yeah.
But but again, it was kind of the right wing Twitter that kind of really
Right,
proliferated the
right.
whole thing because it really strikes a nerve with them because crime and punishment is a real hot topic for them.
Yeah.
Less so on the left.
I was thinking it'd be interesting if you just to see how it played out differently, like if you didn't take the perspective of like, hey, I actually did this, because it seemed like that's what like twisted people up. But to me, that's just funnier. That I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I made parodies and on my channel and stuff, and
it's more fun that way, and it's like, yeah,
it's more compelling.
it's more compelling. And if
Yeah.
I said like, hey, this is how people do it, and this is messed up, it's different than, look at me,
Right.
I stole this house, look at me, and I gave so many clues that it was a parody. It was satire. I was wearing the whole time. I was wearing a hat from a club that I'm in called GoBundance that you can
Okay.
only join with wealth requirements, and like it's a club that you don't join if you're into stealing houses. And then also I've got a URL search bar that the last search was how to be a piece of shit.
It's a pretty big
So
clue.
it's a
Yeah.
pretty big clue. And then the last one was I said, "Hey," and I didn't have to clean the place up because I do a ton of drugs and the place looks every bit of it. And so
There's like bongs and stuff or
yeah,
something.
there's
Yeah.
there was pictures of like it was actually a house that I bought out in St. Helens that was owned by a hoarder
Okay.
and like drug users, and so there was a bunch of like paraphernalia and just it was a hoarder house. We've all
Yeah.
seen that. And so I'm saying this with a straight face to the camera, like, "Hey, I do a lot of drugs." When I don't know, maybe I wasn't really presenting as a hard drug user, I
Yeah.
suppose. Despite all those Easter eggs, a lot of people just didn't get it, and it's not just like wackos from the internet. There's like people that like I knew,
Hmm.
like more like acquaintances, shall we say? Like I was that same group with the hat, GoBundance. They actually
They're like, "What are you
yeah,
doing,
there's a
George?"
handful of guys. They're like, "What the fuck? What is this guy doing? Like, is he a member? This can't be right."
Right.
And I'm like, "Yo, guys, get real." But some people just don't get the joke, and I had to explain it to them, which everybody knows how fun it is to explain a joke, right?
Yeah. Do you think that's like a generational thing, even in your industry? Like older people just don't have a comedy kind of brain on them? I don't know.
I think everybody these days like kind of defaults to anger over comedy. Like
Okay, okay, yeah.
I've heard if you talk to anybody in comedy, they say like it's harder to be a comedian these days because with the boundaries that you have to work within, and
Yeah.
some of them intentionally break them. And I'm very pro comedy about every last
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And so I feel like that's sort of like the default setting for a lot of people is like being just quick to react and quick to get angry.
Yeah, or join a team or something.
Yeah, join a
Yeah,
team,
yeah.
join a tribe.
It is weird because I don't know. I still go to like I'm going to a Helium show in a couple months, and I love the comedy scene
Oh heck yeah,
anywhere in the country. But it's just like
love helium.
there's comedians that like they just live in that world of like they have to be conscious of their jokes and stuff, and I
Yeah.
just feel bad for that. Like I don't know. Um,
I couldn't agree more. I think they've got like there's the ones that's kind of self-censor and then the other ones just throw their middle fingers in the air
yeah,
and
like
say,
I prefer that. It just seems like let the audience kind of figure out what's funny, and I
oh
don't know.
yeah, big fan of be offensive and don't be offended when other people are offended. And so no, don't whack the ball back and forth on the tennis court of being
Yeah,
offended.
totally.
Yeah, and if you are offended, that's fine. You
Yeah,
can keep it to yourself. You can talk about it. But then the people hearing about whether you're offended or not, they have that same choice, whether or not they just want to be offended by
Yeah,
your offense, and stop the mirrors facing each other. Stop it in its tracks.
totally. I was curious too, like what, because I didn't know until before you came here, like I was telling you that these videos had been removed or the video has been removed and stuff. Like, what's the policy thing for that? Like, I don't.
Perpetuating crime, basically,
Okay, even though it's a
because
parody.
even though it's a parody, they're not getting the joke, or it's too subtle. And so TikTok, when they first removed it, said it was like crime and like illegal activities or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So from their point of view, I was showing how to commit a crime,
Okay,
and that was a lot of people's beef too. They're like, "Hey, you're showing people
you're
how to do
you're kind
this."
of showing behind the curtain, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're giving an instruction on how to do the very crime that you're like speaking out against. Like, what the heck are you doing? And my response to that was, you can't get scammed if you know what the scam is. People
yeah, yeah.
prey on ignorance. If you know that people are sending emails pretending to be Nigerian princes and they don't actually have a bunch of money for you, you're not going to respond to that email and send the guy the wire transfer money.
Yeah, it's a good example. Yeah,
Yeah. Same with squatting and stealing houses. You think to yourself like, okay, I got a vacant property. I need to figure out who's going in and out of this place, or else something bad like this could happen to me. Like, what should I do? And then if somebody is in there, knowing what steps to take, if that happens to you.
yeah. And am I remember this right? Because I haven't. It's been a while since I've seen the end of it, but didn't it end up like you were owed money or something like in the parody? You know what I'm saying?
I total up the total amount of value that I was able to extract from the situation. So in the example, it was 3K a month. And I say that I was there for 9 months, but really the reality is that it would be like over a year.
Okay.
And then what people do sometimes is offer these people, whether it's a holdover a tenant that's not paying or squatters, cash for keys. It's money that I will give to you if you just move the heck out.
Just give me the keys and
Just give
yeah.
me the keys and here's some cash and you'll move out. Because more often than not, it's actually cheaper to do that than paying a lawyer, going through the legal system,
Wow.
going through the
The
whole
whole
rigmarole.
eviction process and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, a squatter in California recently demanded $100,000 for cash for keys. That's the highest one I've heard yet.
It's like ransomware now or
It's
something.
like
Yeah.
ransomware,
Wow.
basically. That's a great example. It's just like that, but more often than not, it's like sums of like 2 grand, 5 grand, ten
Okay.
grand. Most that I've heard from somebody I actually know has been 10 grand,
Wow.
which is really wild.
Yeah.
It speaks to just how ineffective the justice system is
And
because you're having to bribe the criminals to stop committing the
yeah.
crime.
Well, I was wondering, has that like got worse? Because I remember when I was in my 20s up here, people even like I knew I knew people that would squat in houses, but like this was like shorter term and also, but there was just this idea that like, hey, it doesn't matter because the eviction process takes a couple months. Has that got worse over time, or is that kind of the same in Portland? Or
I haven't really tracked it, and my awareness of like the whole squatting situation went from like a low level when I made that video to now I have like a PhD
yeah.
because everybody I know has been sending me every single video, and I've studied it, and now I'm actually creating a course on like
Oh, really?
squatter prevention, detection, and ejection.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can help people deal with this whole situation, but whether or not it's gotten worse or not, I feel like it has gotten worse because not just because you're hearing more about it in the news, but homelessness has gotten worse. There's a lot more people that are struggling with drug addiction, and there's just a lot more desperate people now than there ever has been before. And that's coupled with the fact that you have a housing market that is more expensive in every conceivable way than it ever has been in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
So you've got people able, and then a system that enables this to happen. So you've got people able to steal a very very high value thing, a house, without really facing any actual fear of having any repercussions over it. And that is really kind of the perfect storm
Hmm.
for this crime to proliferate, and that's what I think has happened.
Do you know about? And I'm sorry if I didn't ask you this before, but
Yeah.
I heard of a couple things. I think it was Tennessee or maybe just Memphis, the city of Memphis recently
hmm
that they're doing this, trying to get this faster evictions kind of going in certain housing markets. And I'm trying to remember how much it is. I think it's like a matter of weeks or something now. Where
So the best thing that I've heard so far is coming out of Florida.
Okay.
And Florida, what they did is they crafted legislation. They did this real quick. So not I don't love everything about Florida or Ron DeSantis, but this is one thing they definitely got right. And that is basically a streamlined eviction process for people that are obviously squatting.
Okay.
So you have to prove that you have the lawful right to occupy the place, and that is determined within like a matter of days. So like the landlord files for like like a squatter eviction, and then tenants got to prove that they actually live there. That's something you can't do at least very easily unless you're a master of forgery and can get your landlord's signature on a piece of paper. So then they kick him out with the sheriff, just lickety split.
Okay.
And so that's the best that I've seen. And then I've heard New York has tried to do something like that, not quite along the same lines as Florida, but it's the things are happening.
Okay. People are more aware of it and stuff.
Much more aware of it.
Yeah, I was curious because he said something too about title. So people actually do kind of title fraud with that kind of squatting.
Yes. So it's a completely different crime, but it's similar in the fact that you're stealing a house essentially. So and the title fraud is actually a whole lot I'll just call it a little bit more sophisticated and a lot more lucrative because if your goal as the criminal is to extract as much value as possible, you can either occupy the house and get what amounts to free rent. But with home title theft, basically what you do is you take a piece of paper, craft up a fake deed to take the title of the house out of the owner's name and either into your name or an alias or probably an alias because if it's your name that's
It's a
pretty
little too,
obvious, right?
yeah.
And then you go down to the county recorder's office. Oh, you got to fake a notary stamp, but you've seen a notary stamp. It's just ka-chunk.
Yeah.
It's a stamp.
It's just a regular old rubber
It's
stamp.
a regular old stamp, and that's how all real estate transactions, pretty much nationwide, are transferred. You transfer the deed with the county recorder, and then you got a new owner of the house. So now that this person owns the house, no money changed hands or anything, and it's not like these people get notified. So the person now has the deed to the property. They can take out loans. They can sell it on the market. They can sell it to a wholesaler. Chances are they're not going to sell it on the market because that's public, but
Right, right.
wholesalers, these are the people that you've gotten letters in the mail for, like, hey, we'll buy your house for, usually for a discount. And it's, people that are under pressure and need a quick liquidity. Wholesalers are great. But in this case, they'd be buying it from somebody that, isn't the rightful owner. And so this all can happen like within a matter of like weeks or months after the title is transferred, after the title is stolen. And so this has happened, and people have then the wholesaler will sell the house, and people have like built houses on land that was originally stolen from
Wow.
from people from title fraud, and unraveling it because title insurance, that's what you get when you buy the house. That tends to cover um, things that happened to your title before you bought the house. So if they find a roofer that wasn't paid and they didn't know about it.
Okay,
Oh, okay,
okay.
yeah, okay, sorry. Title insurance. We'll pay that roofer before you bought the house. But if something happens after you bought the house, it's different. The title insurance doesn't always cover it. Seldom covers anything that happens from like the full ownership
That's
of your
interesting. Yeah.
property.
I never
Yeah.
knew that actually. And like I told you, I do mortgage stuff for my day job, but I never knew that. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So it's growing in popularity. There was a guy in Atlanta that stole like 30 home titles,
Wow.
and it's growing in popularity. But as part of my little package, this little side hustle that's resulted from my viral video, I'm actually offering software that monitors your title,
Oh, okay. Nice.
and if anybody tampers with it, transfers it, just it lets you know right away.
It'll
Because if you
watch
know
the.
right away, then you can fix it
Okay.
real
Okay.
quick. It's when its time is not on your side. The longer it goes,
Right.
then the more bad things can happen. But if you get a quick notification like, "Whoa, that wasn't me," call up the recorder's office. They're like, "Oh, okay, well let's fix this," and
Yeah.
then, but nothing has been able to happen. Then like can't sell it to a guy. Haven't Can't take out a loan in a day. If you do loan stuff, that takes a few weeks at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. It takes some time. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's really interesting.
yeah, so those are the two ways you steal a house: squatting and home title theft.
Yeah. Um, and I just wanted to quickly plug your thing too. So, did you start your podcast after that or before, or you'd been doing it already?
So the Frozen Millionaires, that's completely different. That was way before.
Okay.
That was just for me wanting to talk to successful business owners, and so the gimmick on that, for those who are not acquainted, Frozen Millionaires is my podcast where I talk to successful business owners. I have a cold plunge in my basement. It's
Okay.
a real like DIY. It's like a
That's
horse
why it's called
trough.
Frozen. I'm just now getting it. Okay. Yeah.
So my wife likes to make fun of me for this because instead of like buying the big expensive unit, I just
Totally.
got a
Yeah.
chiller and like a livestock like water trough.
Yeah. I know people that do that. Yeah. Like the metal ones or plastic
Yeah,
ones or
metal
whatever. Yeah.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, but I love it. I love, things like that, kind of just going full Spartan on it. And so we cold plunge, and then while they're all jazzed up, ready to run through a wall, we talk about their businesses.
Okay. That's funny. Yeah. I never knew the cold plunge part of it. That makes sense with the name.
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
I
that's kind
know
of the
so many
gimmick.
people that cold plunge now. It's like taken over. And I've never done it. Everyone who I talk to, they're like, it'll change your life. Like, it's amazing. Like,
Change your life is a lot, but it's like,
it helps your day, is what
yeah, I think it absolutely will help your day. And it's sort of like, kind of like skydiving, the first time you do it, you just never forget exactly how you felt. Like, whoa, that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up sort of like getting a lower level sensation of that every subsequent time. And so I cold plunge, probably like 4 or 5 times a week,
Okay.
something like that. I
You
used
kind
to
of
do it like every day. It was super
let the
hardcore.
tolerance like build back or something. Or
It's funny. I'd never gotten any real tolerance for it.
oh, I guess
I still fucking hate it, man. Like
it's gonna be very cold no matter what,
it's
right?
cold as hell no matter what, man. Like
Yeah.
I do it because I don't want to do it, if that makes any sense.
Right. You kind of look forward to hating it or something, or
It's look, it's just a mind over matter that you've got to do.
Mhm.
And if you're able to do that, then,
It's,
other things become easier.
it's a welcome challenge every day.
Welcome
Yeah.
challenge. Yeah.
I know
Not every single day. On weekends, like, I don't know. I just want to play with my kids and relax. I
sometimes
go
you're just
so
like,
hard during the week,
yeah, yeah. It's like a weekday thing, I guess.
Yeah,
But
I'd say it's a weekday thing for me.
I was just thinking, I know a guy up in Washington who has a little like pond outside his house, and he was doing it when we had the ice storm up here. He was just like, I'm gonna go do it in the
Just break ice
pond, and
and
he did
jump
it.
in. Oh
He showed me
yeah.
a video of it, but yeah. Um, yeah, I wanted to keep going sort of on the housing stuff.
Yeah.
Just tell me what it's like, because I'm guessing you do a lot of business here in this area. Like, what
hmm
it's like dealing with the city, the county, metro, any government body that.
Well, I mean, so if you're a developer, house flipper, and if you're dealing with, let's just call it like the permitting
Yeah.
process a whole lot, then there's a pretty good chance you've been frustrated for your entire career.
Okay.
It takes a long time to get things permitted. Like if you just want to build a house, you have vacant land and you want to build a house. Not only does it take a really long time for the city to issue permits, but they're very, very expensive. They're among the most expensive in the nation. Um, and you've got a set of restrictions on what you can and can't build there that are in some ways I actually like some of the restrictions.
Yeah.
I think they're good. They increase density, and I am a big density proponent. um, Without that, you've got, massive houses that cost a ton of money, and what the city's done is limit it so that yes, you can build like 5,000 square feet on a 5,000 square foot lot, but you got to have more units that are lower
Okay.
cost for more people to live in. It's not affordable housing per se. You're still going to sell those in a right neighborhood for like, 700 grand. But it's different than having one house that's 5,000 square feet that costs like 2 million bucks or
So yeah,
something.
so you're saying if you do that, you can do that. You just have to build these ancillary units,
Yeah,
sort of
you
thing.
got to build more units
Okay.
basically. And that's totally fine. And that's part of like the statewide like housing policy that went into effect a few years ago.
I'm guessing to directly address housing shortage.
Housing shortage,
Yeah.
yeah. You get more units that are, because when you've got like a section of dirt and you want to build housing on it, you've got some options, but most of it is dictated by zoning. The
Okay.
zoning in Portland is pretty strict. Other places like Houston, there's no zoning code.
Right.
You can just build whatever you want. You can have a McDonald's next to a smelting plant next
Yeah.
to a house.
And I've heard people from Texas talk about that, and they're like, it's so weird because you'll just see all this random stuff just put.
Yeah, so not a fan of that.
Yeah.
I think it actually does make sense to have zoning and to have some rules, but Portland has, in a number of ways, and this is just one of them, kind of overplayed its hand in terms of just how difficult they make it to build housing. And the biggest reason by far why we don't have more housing in Portland is because it takes a long time, it's costly to build, and it doesn't make sense to build unless you're charging a lot of money for it
Mhm.
to either sell it or to rent it.
Makes it hard to get an ROI on that
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
if
was
all
kind
the
of sorry. I was just thinking. I was kind of shocked before we recorded. You were telling me. So if you want to build a new property, the total permitting cost and all that is like, what were you saying, 50 grand or
50
something?
to 75, depending on how big a house you
That
want to
just
build.
seems insane to me. But I don't know. How is that compared to other
It
areas?
used to be a whole lot less. There's a guy I know who posted like an old receipt from the city of, I don't know, Boise or somewhere, and like it was permitting, and it was like $1,200.
Oh wow, yeah.
And so, but it's system development charges. It's money to like parks, the water department, um, the transportation department. It's for like building new roads and building new things. It's essentially like a tax.
All
And
the bureaus, the
all the
city. Yep.
bureaus of
Yeah.
the city, that's a huge way they make a whole lot of money. So for like a single unit in super round numbers, it's like 25K.
Okay.
So and that's for like one unit, whether it's a house sitting by itself on a lot or a 500 unit apartment complex. Every single unit you pay SDCs on, system development charges.
Right.
And then your permit costs, and that's computed based on the cost of what you're building. And so the city shoots from the hip. They're like, "Yep, that's going to be like 500K worth of construction," and then you pay based on that. So for like a nice house, yeah, it's going to be like 50 to 75K just in permits and SDCs to build the thing.
Wow.
But if you're building like a ton of units, you're going to pay a little bit less because you've got one big water line
Right. Okay.
instead
Yeah.
of like a
Right.
bunch of little ones. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, it's if it were faster and the departments talk to each other and it was a whole lot more streamlined, paying a whole lot of money, that sucks. But really, it's the time.
It's the time.
It's
Okay.
the time that really gets me.
Yeah, it is kind of wild because I mean, I kind of knew that. I also have heard that BDS, Bureau of Development Services, is going through this big permitting revamp, and I hope that happens. But it's just wild to me that that's the case because like everyone just beats the drum of housing shortage all the time, and they say Portland's particularly bad. But it's like if that's the case, why does it take this effing long to like? I don't know.
No, that's
Um,
that's literally it. And BDS is going through a big process to like consolidate everything.
yeah,
And fingers crossed.
yeah. I mean, hopefully it'll improve in some way. That's the goal. I just and this is like a side. I just get worried with this new city council format that we have that this all this other stuff will get lost in the noise.
Yeah,
But I hope the bureau kind of fixes a lot of that permitting
I
stuff.
hope so too. And the city council thing, I mean, the jury's out. My mind is open to it.
Yeah.
I can't say that I love it, but you know, the BDS, I will Reformation. Um, I'm actually made a video on how they're reforming things
Okay.
and how just with the name selection of what they want
I
this
did. I saw that
new.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was making fun of the fact that to name the place instead of just keeping the same stupid
I
name.
think they had a vote on it. Oh,
They sent out like a poll to the employees. They voted on it, and then they take the name, they decide on it based on the votes, and then they send it to city council. And city council has to like all talk about it and approve it and everything. It's like, Jesus
it's like
fucking
a
Christ.
month process. Yeah.
How like we're trying to figure out a name for something that's already been named, and all the names that they were choosing from were like virtually identical. It was like Bureau of Development Services Portland or Portland Development uh, Commission of whatever, and they're all so damn similar. I think to myself, you guys, can we just get some shit done around here?
Yeah.
Pretty please, with sugar on top.
Yeah.
And but that's just how they operate. That's government. So but I work with them, and I don't want to badmouth them too much
Right.
because
Right.
I need them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
like I did a video a while ago about like affordable housing development and
Mm.
why it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to build it from the ground up, just because of the economics of it. It costs a whole lot of money, and meanwhile, you've got perfectly safe, perfectly serviceable apartments where you could just get a voucher today without spending millions and millions of dollars to build
Mm.
something that's not going to be done for 2 years
Right. Right.
and get these people, a $2,000 apartment for like a 3 bedroom, 2 bath townhouse, 5 blocks from here, and give them $1,000 voucher, and suddenly they can afford it, just like that. And instead of and do 1,000 of those, 1,000 times, and then
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
$1,000,000 that you would have spent on a thing that's going to be done for like 2 years from now and has much higher maintenance costs.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's the perfect being the enemy, or the good being the enemy of the perfect.
Right, right.
It's not perfect, and I wish that we could provide amazing apartments for like everybody, like, poor families, homeless people, and everything. But the reality is, we can't. We have limited resources, and we have to appropriate them in like the most meaningful way possible. And giving somebody $1,000 voucher for an apartment is not sexy
Yeah,
at all.
right. People
And
people probably just hear the word and they're like, "What are
there's
you
like,
talking about?" Yeah.
yeah, vouchers. I've heard that before. Like, these are
Yeah.
not great apartments. Look at this homeless person's little pod. It's terrible. Like, it's like, well, yeah, but here's what they were doing before.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will just say, "Well, what are you talking about? Where's the inventory for that?" But it sounds like
There's
you've thought about this and
Yeah, I mean, 5% vacancy with like, 100,000 units. There's vacant
okay.
apartments. And they're just and plus, like, it's not like you're taking 100,000 like homeless people and putting them into those units. You're
Right.
taking people that are overburdened with their housing costs.
Yeah.
It's just like it goes from somebody like giving away 60-70% of their paycheck to live in a $1,500 unit.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're like, okay, whew, guys, you won't believe this. We can live in this place for $500 a month, and I can keep my job and stay in our neighborhood. Like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds like the perfect because there's a lot of talk up here all the time about people that are on the verge of being homeless, and if that's the case, that sounds like a great solution to that.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. We talked about density a little bit. You're just a general proponent of it. I know we talked a little bit about ADUs. Do you feel like the city, I guess it'd be mostly the city, they've done a good job of kind of enabling ADUs?
Yeah. So, talking about some L's of the city moments ago, let's talk about a big W. The ADU policy that they have for the city, for the most part, and of course, I'm kind of grading on a curve here, but it's been fabulous. And the biggest thing that they've done so far that's been helping the ADU supply, which really helps the housing supply, is waiving SDC fees. That's those big charges you get for having a
Okay.
new housing
Right,
unit.
right, yeah.
If you sign an affidavit promising not to rent it out as a short-term rental,
Airbnb or
as
something.
if you don't Airbnb it, you don't have to pay SDCs, which is amazing because most people, they maybe consider doing a short-term rental because it makes more money oftentimes than a long-term rental. But if you do away with those fees, the cost just becomes a whole lot more affordable. And suddenly people are looking at, they're like, okay, I've got a yard. I've essentially got free land. All I have is hard construction costs. I can
Mm.
conceive this in my brain. There's nothing that's going to sneak up on me from the permit office saying like, guess what? You owe us 30 grand.
Right.
It's like, whoa, okay, well, my construction costs, are going to be this, this, and this, and can barely make it work. And really, it only does really work in like nicer neighborhoods where people are going to rent out an ADU for like $1,800 instead of like $1,000.
Right.
But by doing that, that's a big win for Portland because that increases the housing stock. They're smaller units that are going to be more affordable to rent. They're newer and nicer. They're in people's backyards, so if they're fugly,
Who
nobody's going to
cares?
see them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And and plus they've doubled down on that, and they've made it so you can put more than one ADU
Oh, really?
or do what's called a middle housing land division, especially if it's on a corner lot, and you can actually have ownership, not just of the structure,
Hmm.
but also of the dirt all around you. It's a
Wow.
fee simple ownership, which is
Okay.
different than just buying like an ADU in the backyard because that's like a condo. You own like just like the sticks and
You
bricks,
you don't have the property
but
around it,
the
yeah.
but you don't own the property. You don't own the dirt below you. But with the middle housing land division, you do, even though it's not a lot of it, you own the land down to the center of the earth and up to the stratosphere,
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard of that, yeah.
which is fabulous because people don't love condos, and that's essentially when you're selling an ADU in your backyard. That's essentially kind of what you're selling.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, I own all this house, this yard, and everything. So as soon as you step outside your house, like it's not yours
Yeah.
anymore. But um, but with the middle housing land division, they've done that, and plus it's a streamlined process that takes just a few months.
Okay. That's
So
pretty quick.
quick rundown of all the W's that Portland's had lately. That's chief among them, I'd say.
All right. I was curious when you were talking just now or earlier too, I was thinking I'm biased on this because I'm like a car guy, but aren't there all these things now where you can't really provide parking, or
Yeah, you don't have to.
it's optional?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's optional, but no one's going to do it because parking makes you no money as a developer, but it costs you
It's better
a
to
shit
just
ton of
use
money.
that space for how other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
If so, you're gonna give somebody a garage for like a single family, and that is going to help the value of the house. But like say an apartment building, the reason why apartments are being built right now with no parking
Mm,
is because parking is expensive and they're barely making them pencil without parking,
okay.
just with construction costs, land costs, where rents are right now. So, like the apartments that I'm building over on Lombard across from New Seasons, there's no parking there, but there's street parking in the neighborhood. There's a bus stop right there. There's mass transit close by. There's people on bikes everywhere.
Yeah.
That's really what Portland wants to happen.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, it's like obviously the city wants that,
Yeah.
and I think in a neighborhood like Lombard, that makes total sense. I see them around here, and that's why I went under. I'm like, this isn't. It's walkable for me. Like I walk miles around here, but I don't know about the average person. But yeah, I understand. Like most neighborhoods, it probably is fine. Like you know.
Most of them are fine, and but I do fully understand neighbors not loving, a big apartments coming up, complex coming up. A lot of those people are going to be car owners, and they're going to be taking up spots that were, that were just for them and their neighbors. And I feel their pain
Yeah.
because in my neighborhood, that's happened over in Northwest. There's been more apartments built, and the parking is inched closer and closer to my neighborhood, and it's become a little more difficult to park. And do I love that? No, but on the other hand, all of those people that are occupying those apartments, they're shopping at our grocery stores, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
the bars. It's creating, it's pumping money into the economy and making our neighborhood better, more inhabited, more lively, and that to me is a much better trade-off than, having to walk an extra few car lengths because I had to park in front
Yeah.
of somebody else's house instead of my own.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense too the way you were explaining it. Like from a financial standpoint, just use that space for something for more housing or whatever else you're going to
Yeah,
build
more
there.
housing,
Yeah.
more restaurants, more, I mean, that's what makes Portland great.
Hmm. Okay. I wanted to get your take on. I've heard a lot of stuff in my world in my day job about the next like 5 to 10 years forecast for the housing market.
Mm.
And what I've heard is like we're going to be at this elevated kind of shorter supply, elevated rates for the next several years. And I'm just curious if like that's what you feel like.
Yeah, 100%. I think the most compelling stat that I've heard when people are relaying that theory is that I'm going to get this wrong, but it's in the ballpark. Something like 96% of people who own homes right now have a rate that's below like
Mm.
4%.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people that bought during the pandemic when rates were really low, and then a lot of people that refinanced during that time
Right.
as well, to the tune of like in the mid to high 90s of all rates right now. And there is a ton of people, including myself. I've kind of outgrown my house with my two kids as they've aged. But if we want to move up the hill, the house is a lot more expensive, not just because it's, a few hundred grand more. It's because we have to give up our 3.5% rate,
Right.
and nobody wants
Nobody
to
wants to
do
do that.
that.
Yeah.
My mortgage would probably triple with a only slightly more expensive house. And even if I bought a less expensive house, my mortgage rate would, based on the fact that I've got a super low rate, would practically double. And there's a ton of people that are in that situation. And the people that are moving and that are selling now, a lot of them are because they have to.
Mm.
They're transferred because of their jobs. Doesn't make sense to rent out most homes. Most homes just don't pencil as rentals. And then you've got a lot of people that are just kind of stuck where they are.
They're locked in.
They're
Yeah.
locked in. So that leads to really low inventory, and rates not they're not going to budge during an election year. As for their long term, tough for me to speak to that, but I think the same phenomenon is just going to continue
Mm.
because you've got people that are locked in with low rates, and unless they have to, I think they're just going to stick around.
Yeah. That's how I feel. Yeah. And I did want to ask you about this because you mentioned before I was asking you for advice for me.
Yeah, yeah,
I always tell people I'm a millennial that'll probably never own a home, like a lot of millennials, but you
yeah.
never know. Maybe I will. But you pointed to an FHA thing that I think is helpful, or a possible solution to people like me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so all my years of training as a realtor back in the day, I'm a licensed principal broker, but the brokerage I do is really bare minimum at this
Okay.
point. But um, the quickest and easiest and cheapest way to qualify for a home is to qualify for an FHA loan. That's 3.5% down. You got to pay the inspector and the appraiser. Just count on like $1,000 ish worth of costs when you're buying a house on top of your 3.5%. Have the seller pay your closing costs because that's going to be several $1,000s. But so yeah, if you want to buy a house in Portland, like that's still a lot of money. 3.5% of, what's the average price now? Like 460 grand or
Yeah,
something.
probably around 500,000. Yeah.
Yeah, $500,000. 3.5% of that is, I mean, oh, I'm gonna get this wrong. Like you're saving like almost 20K or something. So that's not easy. But if you can scrape that money together, either yourself, have it given to you by, a friend, a parent, like just in portions, like, if you can come up with 10K and get your aunt to match 10K, just get that house. Just get in there is my advice to people.
Yeah.
Even if it's in a place that you don't love. The first place that I ever bought, it was at 11th and Killingsworth in 2004. And 11th and Killingsworth was a little different than it is right now.
Yeah.
Every time I would go for a run, I would get harassed, and like I was a white guy living in a black neighborhood.
Hmm.
And no one was yelling like gentrify or anything back then. It was just the fact that I was white and
Yeah.
it was in a black neighborhood. So like, did I want to live there? Hell no. But at the time, it made sense for me to buy it because it was 180 grand, and that's what I could afford as, I just entering into the
Hmm.
workforce a
Hmm.
couple years ago. And really glad that actually that I bought that place because it ended up of course going up in value. I ended up refinancing a few years later and then using the money to buy another place, and that's actually what
Hmm.
kind of started my real estate career. So, but the
Sorry, dog.
lesson there, oh, hi dog.
Sorry. She doesn't do this often. I don't know why she's doing this.
Hi cutie. But yeah, but the point of that is you're probably not going to want to live in the neighborhood where you can afford your first house.
Yeah.
That was true back in '04, and it's probably even more true right now. And but building wealth, I think there's something like most of the nation's wealth is in their personal home equity.
Right. Right. It all starts there,
It
right?
all starts there, and it can be a painful process to get started. But I really highly encourage people to make a little bit of a sacrifice on the saving side and then on the location side. And if you can help it, don't buy a condo.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit before about owning the dirt underneath you. That means more and more. And density is going to start with the close-in areas with the city, and it's going to keep moving out because we need more housing, we need more density, and eventually these things are going to spread. It's eventually going to make sense to build and sell units that are like on the east side of 82nd,
Hmm.
and some people do that. There's a whole lot less of them, but it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
So uh, get it together as best you can, and then try and do it like that because I can't think of any other way.
Yeah.
Apart from stealing a title or squatting in the house, you
Right.
could always give that a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is good. I hear all this crazy stuff now about what's it called? Gen
Gen
Z.
Z.
Gen Z just preferring to rent because they can be mobile and move around all the time, and it just seems insane. But I understand the like life experience aspect of it, but it's not very smart financially, obviously. To
Probably not, but one hack that I actually give a lot of credit to Gen Z for, which is not a sentence you hear me say a lot, but
Yeah.
is living abroad.
Right.
I have a friend right now. Shout out to Justin Green. He's been spending a whole lot of time in Southeast Asia, and so he's like kind of semi-retired now in his 40s, living really high off the hog in these nations where he can get on this computer, he can do his business just fine,
And you can
but
make your dollar go a lot further,
his
right?
dollar goes 10 times
Yeah.
as far as it does in Portland, and he's staying in like temporary housing, hotels, but still, it's still a whole lot cheaper
Hmm.
than like he'll stay in a place that's like $50 a night. That's really nice. That's like, what is that per month? Like $1,500?
Hmm.
That's a whole lot less than you pay in a lot of places in Portland.
Yeah.
So, and plus like meals, transportation, everything. And it's not just in Southeast Asia. Like there's guys living in Mexico, South America. It's amazing how much less expensive you can live abroad and still have a really nice lifestyle.
Yeah. So you get
Like
that life aspect that Gen Z is looking for. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, and they're enjoying their lives because I mean they kind of think like, boy, this guy's saying like, hey, just save up 20K for a house down payment like it's nothing. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to come off like that because it absolutely is really hard when you're on a fixed income to save 20 grand to put down on a house in a location that I'm encouraging you to live in that you don't really want to live in.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a big ask, and people and these Gen Z guys are looking at me like, yo, dude, why the fuck would we want to do that? Like, and so the alternative is, renting an expensive apartment and continuing to pay, $7 for your morning coffee. Or if you can figure out a way to get to like rural Mexico, like
Hmm.
there's internet, there's wonderful culture, there's wonderful food. And I spend a lot of time in rural Mexico going surfing, and I love it there. Everywhere you go is less expensive. You gotta learn how to speak Spanish because that's where the English goes away, is
Yeah.
once you get on the sticks. But it's great. I love it. My favorite restaurant, and I told this to a lot of people, my favorite restaurant in the whole world is it's at a place called The Ranch.
Okay.
It's north of Zihuatanejo, about an hour and a half. It's a surf break. And there's one little taqueria, and it's like a thatched roof, and it's like the floor is sand,
Mm.
plastic chairs, and it's a senora and a senorita, and they just serve like eggs and bacon and basic breakfast toast and Gatorade. It's catered to the surfers out
Sounds
there.
fantastic. Yeah.
It's right on the beach. It's drop dead gorgeous. You're in the shade. You're having huevos rancheros, and I think that like, I'm into it with like two Gatorades, enough food like for like to kill an elephant, and I'm into the whole thing for like $7.
There you go. Yeah.
And I've just gone surfing. I've got an amazing view. I've got amazing food, and it's such a great value, and I love it.
And you can like go just right back on the waves, right?
And just go right back
Yeah.
out.
That
Exactly.
sounds cool. Yeah.
It is pretty cool. So I encourage Gen Z or really any generation to live without borders,
Mhm.
because it's going to cost you a whole lot less, and you're going to like it a whole lot more.
Cool. Yeah. I think it's good advice. All right. Let me get into these outro questions here. Actually, I did want to. This is a random question.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Tree of Heaven?
The Tree of Heaven. No.
I have. I have one right out here.
Are you trying to sell me into your cult today?
No, it does sound like
Andy,
a
is
cult,
that?
doesn't it? No, it's I learned about it from my friend Ren, who was here a couple days ago co-hosting with me, but he has a bunch of them on his property, and they're like these invasive trees that
Oh.
come in and break the foundation of your house, and they're just insane. I was curious if you'd heard of them as a developer, because like it's obviously on existing homes a lot, they'll just sprout up, but the root system is like so strong that you can like cut them down and it'll just keep going and going and going.
Oh no.
Um,
I haven't heard
but I
that.
was just curious. Yeah,
No, I mean, but don't plant a tree right next to your foundation, Tree of Heaven or otherwise, because
it's bad.
it's bad.
Yeah.
Plus, a lot of foundations in Portland, unless they were built like on the last like 20 years, are there's a company called like Portland Sand and Gravel or something that went under like sometime in the, I don't know, 70s or whatever. A lot of foundations in Portland are crap,
They're
and
just
so
like barely holding on.
they're just
Kinda.
barely holding on.
Yeah, yeah.
Essentially, they crumble, and you see them if you're a realtor. If you're going into a lot of homes, like you just rub against the wall in the basement, and it just like flakes away.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of foundations in Portland that are crap. So they'll hold the place up because it's just rock sitting
It's just
underground.
gravity. Yeah.
But the moment you got like tree roots, or like your gutters are not routed right, you got moisture, like yeah,
Right.
that's you don't give your foundation any excuse to go under
That's
that you
good.
that you don't need
I
to.
like that advice. Yeah. All right. Tell me as much you want to tell about your Northwest story, like how you got to Portland and all that stuff.
So I came here at a young age. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Go Orioles! And I moved here right before my ninth birthday.
What about the Ravens? Do you like the Ravens?
Oh, you know what? They actually showed up after I moved.
Okay.
And so I've got like a
They
little
have
bit
a
of
fantastic
elation.
football team right
They
now.
really do. And I want to get into them, but
Okay.
like it's my childhood going to Orioles games. Like now we have a football team. Okay,
I get
that's
it.
cool, I guess.
It's
Like,
the nostalgia for the. Yeah.
it's the nostalgia for me. Same the reason that I'm a Blazer fan, because it's been rough lately. But
But that was kind of like you moved here and the Blazers were
I moved,
popping off. Yeah.
when it moved here was like the year before that we started getting good.
Okay.
And so that was 89, I guess, or no,
Oh, yeah,
88
yeah.
when I moved here. I think, yeah, it was
So
80,
you saw the
88.
whole finals with the Bulls and all that
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was big into that. Yeah, I can still tell you a lot about that series actually.
Nice.
I have
Clyde the Glide and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jordan versus Clyde. But yeah, no, I came out here at a young age, and I've been out here pretty much ever since. Lived abroad for a little bit after college. I went to Atlanta. I went to Emory for college and business school, and then came back, and I've pretty much been here ever since.
Okay. You went to high school up here, basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
Lincoln High School. Go
Oh,
Cardinals.
nice. Yeah. When I worked at KGW, it's right next to Lincoln,
Oh,
obviously.
right
So
on.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I know
No,
it's like new now, right? They redid
they
most
completely
of it.
redid
Yeah.
it. I haven't been inside it, but I've been to the track a few times, and it's amazing.
It
Like,
looks, yeah, like obviously brand new and everything.
all of our babysitters for our kids are now like Lincoln kids,
Yeah.
and it's so funny. I'll say like, "Hey, what do you think of the new school?" And they'll say, "Oh, it's really nice. It's new and it's good, but man, there's so many stairs. We're so tired of walking up and down stairs." And every single time, I'm like, "Suffer, suffer."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is cool.
And they're like, "No, I get it," but it's like I'm just like, still suffer.
That's great. Okay, let me get to these goofy questions here. Let's say you're parking somewhere. I saw you parking here earlier, but normal like shopping center place. Do you pull in or do you back in?
I'm pulling in front unless I really love when there's two parking spots stacked in front of each other so I can pull in frontwards and be able to pull outwards when I
Yeah,
leave.
I've
That's
heard that from
that's
people.
priority one. I'll walk extra distance for that.
I think I know because I'm trying to visualize. So you're saying you pull in and there's an empty spot in front of you and you can
That's
pull
correct. Yeah.
straight out without the stopper? Yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But backing into all my parallel spots, people that go frontwards into parallel
Oh my
spots
God, that's
need to be
like
arrested.
serial
Like, yeah.
killers. Yeah. I didn't even know people did that. That's crazy. I
Yeah.
guess there's, people try everything, but which piece of fruit do you think you could throw the farthest if you just chucked it across a football field or?
The first thing I can think of is an apple because the structural integrity of it seems like it would, and like it has some weight to it. Maybe an orange, but
Mhm.
the first thing I'm thinking of is a good size, like a good size apple
Okay.
with some.
It almost always comes down to apple orange, and I'm trying to remember if I remember this correctly. What I learned is if you weigh them both, I believe the apple weighs more, which I didn't think would be the
Is
case
that
because
so?
I thought the water weight of the orange would be.
Yeah.
But I think that was like a quick Google, and I think you'd have to really compare them because it's like it just depends on which one you grab. Like they're gonna be different sizes and stuff.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
think I think I'm gonna stick with the apple, although I could definitely hurl an orange.
okay, all right.
I've actually been hit by an orange at
Have you really?
yeah, when I
People
was
throwing fruit at you, dude?
at 9. Yeah, I know. It's you think it would be recently, but no, in high school, I was having lunch out on the Lincoln patio, which
Mhm.
is now no longer there, and the seniors didn't like the fact that there was freshmen occupying some of their space. We didn't know we were doing the wrong
Um,
thing, but learned this afterwards, and they hurled things. So a couple like things went by. We're like, "What the heck's that?" And then boom, orange to the side of the head.
did it like, or was it
It actually kind of
still intact?
exploded. I had orange juice all over
Oh
me.
wow,
Yeah.
that's a hard impact.
Yeah, so we ate lunch elsewhere after that.
That's it. You just reminded me because I remember we had this thing called the senior walk, and it was like if anyone other than a senior walked in that thing, it was like fair game to go after him.
Yeah, fruit upside the head.
Okay. Um, do you like crunchy or smooth peanut butter, or maybe you don't like peanut butter?
100% smooth.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't go crunchy. I mean, if that's all I have, I'm on a camping trip. Desperation sets in.
What's the hard decision? Why is that?
It's a texture thing for me.
Okay.
It's a
I've heard
texture
that
thing for
people don't
sure.
like it's like Cap'n Crunch or something when they eat Cap'n Crunch. It's like too
There's
scrapey or something.
there's unexpected crunch in there, and I like to keep track of the crunch. And
Okay.
so
Crack the crunch, yeah. And what about stir no stir? You like?
or for peanut butter?
Yeah.
There's big debate on that in my house right now.
Okay.
So I like, just because I don't eat a whole lot of peanut butter, like the processed, terrible for you, hydrogenated
That's me.
bullshit.
I like it
Yeah,
too.
the
Yeah.
Jif.
It's more
And
convenient.
oh yeah, it tastes better. I mean, there's sugar added and everything. But then meanwhile, my wife, who is a total hippie, shout out to Tiff, she wants to get the stuff that was like made out of smashed peanuts that were like smashed an hour before you got to the grocery
Right.
store. The peanut butter costs $18, and you have to stir it for half an hour before you can like spread flavorless nut
Yeah.
juice on
And
your peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
and all the people I've talked to that they keep it in the fridge and all this stuff. I'm like, that sounds like too much work for me.
Yeah, and
I just want
plus
the peanut butter.
it increases the viscosity of it when you throw it in the fridge because it's colder, and so it's not
Hmm.
only you stirring, you're like getting a wrist workout like while you're stirring that shit, and I'm just like, oh my God, enough. But
Becomes
then
a whole day job. No.
yeah, exactly. So it's like this with this and so many other things with my wife, who I love very much. We have a playful little battle going on with this very thing. So
Okay.
funny you should ask, but yes, the hydrogenated, mass-produced bullshit.
Yeah, you want that palm oil, just
Yeah.
like me. I'm just like, just clear cut all the palm trees, please. No,
But I'm
I'm
not
just kidding.
willing to go out and like out of my way to buy the other stuff like more often. So
Okay.
like most of the peanut butter I'm having is the stir it, earn it,
Okay.
pay $20 for a jar of it that my wife gets, and
All right.
that's how I live.
This is kind of an aside, but I'm 37 and I tried Uncrustables yesterday for the first time.
Wait, what is
Do you know
this?
what that is?
No.
They're like for kids, but it's like they're just frozen peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and
Oh,
you just put them out and thaw it, and then there's no crust, and you just eat it. They're
oh.
famous because Drake eats them, and I'm trying to do everything that Drake does, but
Yes. I
um,
mean, what could possibly go wrong?
he's so loved right now. But uh, let's see. Do you have a favorite type of French fry? Do you like regular cut, crinkle cut, curly fry? Yeah, I've heard shoe fry this weekend, which I never thought of. But
You know, the one fry preference I have is one that's not often offered, but crispy fries, ones that are left in the fryer a little bit longer.
okay,
I used to work at a place called the Foothill Broiler in
okay.
Northwest Portland. So that went out of business a long time ago. But when I worked there, that was the first time I heard it. And I was like, what are crispy fries? And they're like, well, here you go. And it's fries that have like a whole lot more crunch on the outside.
Mm.
And oh man, those were just the best.
Okay, and that's like something you can ask for if you go in and say, "I want it crispy."
Yeah, I don't know if any if I've been too scared to try.
Okay, that's all good.
But you can give that a shot. Other than that, I'm covering with salt and dipping in with ketchup. But
Okay,
oh, and then having a little skin on them, I like it. Then
okay.
a little bit more flavor, a little more authenticity.
You just made me think. I need to add this question, but if you had to pick like one favorite condiment, because I'm a big mustard guy,
Oh yeah,
but you just mentioned ketchup, and ketchup is like at the bottom of my list.
it's sugar and salt mixed with a little bit of tomato.
Okay,
Like it's not like so.
if you had to pick one like on a desert island or something, would it
I
be
would
ketchup?
go with mustard,
Okay.
and plus with mustard, like there's fancy ketchup sort of like the Portland ketchup is by far the best ketchup,
Mm-hmm.
but then with mustard, there's like a ton of different varieties that you can choose
Mm.
from, and I've had mustard phases where I'll have
Okay.
like 6 or 7 different kinds, like oh this has horseradish in it, and this one has
Okay.
this one has bay leaves or whatever, and
You like all the varieties.
yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, mustard, 100%.
Um, you have a favorite fast food place?
Definitely Popeyes. I love Popeyes. It's a rare treat. I try and so I do eat healthy. It's not just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hydrogenated peanut
Right.
butter.
I know all these questions make you seem like you're
But when I'm in, because I have to drive around town a lot of time for my work, but whenever I pass by Popeyes and it's that time, I will treat myself to a Popeyes chicken sandwich.
shout out to Popeyes. Yeah,
Shout out to Popeyes.
I wanted to do this last Thanksgiving, but they sell a Thanksgiving turkey that I want to try.
Do they?
They'll mail it to you.
They'll mail it to you?
Yeah,
Dang.
it's frozen, obviously, but I do want to try that.
Huh. I'll have to look into that.
This does make it sound like we're really unhealthy, and I am, but you're healthier than me. Do you have if you're going to an ice cream place, do you go cone, waffle cone, or cup?
I go cup just because like the mess that I've had to deal with having young kids
Yeah.
has just led me to be more of a neatnik than I've ever thought that I would ever be. Like growing up, and if you ever saw like any of my like college dorms or
Mm.
anything, you would be like, okay, this guy like does not have his life together. Like this, it was not neat at all. But now, after having cleaned up after 2 humans for about 10 years now, um, I just the ice cream drips down the hand. It's on the
Mm-hmm.
clothes. It's more
Mm-hmm.
work for me. It's for my wife, and so I'm in a cup.
Okay. I'm right there
Cone
with you.
cones are so much fun, and they taste better. They provide texture. I love it, but
For the messiness, I'm right there with you because I hate stuff on my hands, like sticky stuff. And so
yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, right there with you. Yeah.
what flavor are you putting in there?
Ooh. Ice cream flavor. Boy, I was actually just in Bend with
You,
my
s-
wife.
you seem like a sherbet guy, but maybe I'm way off. I don't know.
No one's ever told me that before. I'm
Okay.
gonna take that one to the bank. No, I usually get. I've been trained, I think, by my wife to get stuff that she likes as well,
Okay.
and that's usually kind of cookie oriented,
Cookies and
fudgy
cream
oriented.
or something.
Yeah, like cookies and cream. Cookie dough
Oh yeah.
is a big one, but where my heart really lies is with the malts. I get a
Oh, okay.
I get a vanilla malt,
I
which
like that.
my wife says it's boring and she doesn't like malt, so I have to get things that she can share, right?
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
I'm by myself in a vacuum, I'm getting the vanilla malt.
All right. I like it.
Yeah.
This might be another battle with you and your wife, but do you keep your butter out or in the fridge?
Oh yeah, no, you got to keep it out as long as you're blowing through it fast enough.
Putting it
Um,
on bread and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
because the ease with which you can spread it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't heard a compelling case about it being, dangerous or bad for you. But we
Oh,
blow
yeah.
through butter in the house.
Okay.
I'm the cook of the house. Tiff cooks occasionally, but like I'm the chef,
You're the guy.
and I use honey, you should tune out right now. I use an ass load of butter just to make things just taste
It tastes
better.
better. Yeah, it
It
does.
really does.
Makes everything better. Do you like string cheese?
Yeah, but it's usually in situations where like that's all I got.
Okay. Do you peel it or do you just eat it?
Oh, definitely peel it.
Okay.
Yeah, the inner kid is definitely peeling that string
I've got
cheese.
like a 90% ratio on people that do that because I just like to eat it, and this is what
Oh, like
started this question.
eat it like it's a
I
like a
just want to
stick.
eat it as fast as I can. Yeah. So, and my whole thing is if I was president, I'd have an age cutoff where you can't peel it after a certain age because that's for kids. But
Oh man.
people always go, "It's in the name. It's called string cheese."
It's again with the nostalgia. Like I always
Yeah.
just peeled it off. The texture is fun,
Yeah.
and plus you get to dangle it.
You can do whatever you want with it. Um, do you believe in Bigfoot? I had a guy who runs the North American Bigfoot Center in here a couple days ago.
I can't say I do.
Okay. That's
I
fine.
mean, with so many things, with Bigfoot, hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble with God, things that I can't see. It's
Supernatural type.
supernatural
Yeah.
stuff. I'm just by nature skeptical, but I never rule out the possibility that it exists because I've been proven wrong enough times in
Okay.
my life. And one thing I pride myself is actually having the humility to be proven wrong and to
Mm.
admit it and say like, "Oh my God, well,
It
turns
is.
out there is a Bigfoot. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle.
Yeah,
There it
it's
is."
it's an important skill to have as an adult to be able to shift your thinking, I think.
Exactly, to
Yeah.
be able to change your mind. People don't change their minds enough
Yeah.
these
They're too
days.
locked in,
Yeah,
just like the mortgage rates.
exactly.
Um, you kind of already do this, but if there was like a huge brand you could run if you were forced to, is there one that you'd want to run? Like,
Boy, that's a tough one. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Nike, just because, we see it a lot being from Portland, but I just I just like what they've always done. It's sort of like the hero archetype,
mm,
try your best, be the best you can be, and wear Nike stuff while you're doing it. But really, like be the best you can be is
mm,
kind of like been their kind of branding. Like just do it. Like
yeah,
get after it. I've, especially like in my adult life, really tried to kind of live that way. And of course, it's like it's all marketing and everything, but that's their image, that's their brand, that's what they're conveying. And as my best self, I kind of like live like that. I think I really I get after it with my work, try and have authentic relationships with my family and my friends, and just make the most of my time here on this planet.
yeah,
And so with Nike, I feel like that's it's consistent with their message, and plus I like their stuff. So
yeah.
Nike,
I like their shoes too. That's all I buy: Adidas and Nike shoes
yeah.
mostly.
Actually, I'm wearing
Oh,
some
there you
throwbacks
go.
right now.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if that's in the shot, but there it
Yeah,
is.
we'll get it. I got 3 cameras. No, I was thinking that does make sense, especially with your cold plunging and stuff. And I bet you remember the old Nike Town. I mean, it's still Nike
Oh
Town.
yeah,
Yeah.
Nike Town, yeah.
I remember when or it was like in the 90s, I first visited. I was like, what is this? It's
Oh
like, it
yeah, it
was
was like
like
from the
Disneyland or
future.
something. Yeah. Um, I have only asked this one time because it's, it's kind of a offensive question, but I asked a candidate this a couple weeks
That
ago.
should be
What's
good.
your serial killer trade? Do you have a serial killer, like something you do really weird? Like mine is I put mustard on biscuits. I also, most of the time when I take a shower, I have no lights on. I guess that's kind of a serial
Whoa,
killer
you shower in
trait.
the dark?
Yeah. I also sleep with my socks on most of the time. People think that's fucking weird, but do
Boy,
you have something that like that that's
the only thing that I can think of is something that I get consistently made fun of for is I like order milk in restaurants.
Oh my God, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, you're spot on.
Yeah, no,
Just
and
drinking milk
just
nowadays is
drinking milk. Yeah, we've been trying to do less of it because like the hormones, and I have a daughter, and we don't want her. Yeah. So basically, I'll not just at breakfast, but sometimes like out and other meals, I have to be in company that isn't going to like, completely like
totally.
like destroy, eviscerate me for like
That could be a
ordering
sketch right
milk.
there.
But
You're with a bunch of real estate guys and they all get whiskey and you just get like
yeah, just like, yeah, I'll just take a glass of milk.
yeah.
I know. And so I get made fun of like mercilessly for it. So now it's pretty much just like at breakfast.
Okay.
But still, even then, people would be like,
I'm sure you get shit. Yeah,
Milk?
because I love whole milk, and people think I'm weird for that, but
Oh yeah, no, that's my favorite
yeah.
right there.
Okay,
So
that
yeah.
definitely qualifies.
I
Um,
guess so.
that's pretty much it. You kind of did the meal. I always ask people if they want to do a meal shout out, but you kind of said the place in Mexico. But unless there's like a local one that you had a good meal recently.
Boy, I really love El Gaucho. It's I
The
mean, I
downtown one, yeah.
the downtown one, and I don't know, maybe this is bad because it's like one of the bougier places in Portland, but like you can smoke a cigar there
Okay, yeah.
and watch sports and get like a really good steak. They've got a really great happy hour for like steak frites for I can't remember, like, $20 or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty affordable considering the fact that they get really high grade, excuse me, they get really high grade beef.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big steak guy. On my socials, my personal one, I guess less on my business one, you'll see me cooking up steaks a lot.
Okay.
And big into that, and I know that they get really high quality beef. They make it exquisitely. The service is amazing. The ambiance is great. They get really great musicians to play great music. You'll hear like a Spanish guitar cover
Ooh,
of like a
yeah.
Fall Out Boy song or something, and so
That
they're
is cool. And
bridging the gap.
smoking a cigar, just enjoying all that. Yeah.
I just love it there, and
Yeah.
they made it through the pandemic, thank goodness.
Well,
And
yeah. Shout out to them. I almost went to they have one on the Vancouver waterfront now, and I almost went there a couple weeks ago.
oh, that's news to me.
Yeah,
I'll
because
have
I
to
work in
check that out.
Vancouver,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I want to go to that new location.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out. I hear the Vancouver waterfront
It's
is
popping off. Yeah,
popping.
it's nice. That's kind of it. I did want to give one last chance to shout out. Like, what's the best place for people to reach you?
Probably the best way to reach me is just find me on social.
Okay.
My Instagram is MRD McCleary Realty and Development, MRD_Portland, and that's the same on TikTok. And then Facebook, it's like I think McCleary RE or something. But just search for McCleary Development, McCleary Realty, George McCleary. I always say that I'm very easy to find. I think there was like a mayor in Kansas that had my name, and then there's like a professor somewhere, but there's really not a lot
Okay.
of George McCleary's
You
out
got the
there.
SEO kind of.
Yeah, no, I've got the SEO on lock. Like something like most of the results when you Google George McCleary, it's me. So
Nice. Yeah.
hit me up there. There's a bunch of real estate stuff like this real estate agent has sold 2 properties or whatever,
Mm.
but most of it is like my socials. So find me on there, shoot me a message. That's actually how you and I met each
Yeah. Yeah.
other, as I just got a message from Andy and here I
Mhm.
am talking to him. So shoot me a message. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and check out Frozen Millionaires podcast.
That's right, the Frozen Millionaires podcast on
Yeah.
Apple or Spotify.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming today, George.
My
This was
pleasure, man.
fun.
This was great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.